And we are back. Welcome to another episode of the College Football Review with you. Look, I gotta get that finger in there with you. I'm Trav, along with Dime Ski, who's always interrupting me while when I'm trying to introduce him. He interrupts me every time. But Dime Ski's in the house, and we're going to talk about the fifth week of college football. It has now become a thing of the past. Today is Sunday. You'll probably start seeing this on Monday, but nevertheless, it's all behind us now. Week number 5 is in the books, and as you see what we have on the sideline, our playbook shows you how we're going to get down today. And the way we're going to get down to kick off week number 5, we're talking about some games that probably don't matter. What game doesn't matter? Well, Army and East Carolina doesn't matter. We're going to talk about that only because it started off the college football week. Army lost to East Carolina. No one really cares about the score, but we're not going to give it. Anyway, this is not your old Army team. East Carolina ended up winning mostly because there isn't any a quarterback at Army that can do anything other than run the option. I mean, that's just what it is. Bryce Daly is a thing of the past. He set all the records last year with Army, and now he's gone. It's a completely different team. They can lead the nation in rushing or even be number 2 in the league in rushing or the nation. It doesn't matter anymore. Their defense can't do anything, and therefore Army lost to East Carolina and made me some money in the process. 4.5 points. Give them to me, and I took them. Actually, I gave them to Army. Still won, got the blowout. So the big game is, as you already know, Dime Ski. It was Florida State and Virginia on Friday. Florida State undefeated, nothing like last year's team. Started the team beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa all the way up until now. Undefeated, blowing other lesser teams out. Of course, that's what you do during the college football season. They go to Charlottesville, take on Virginia, and they lose in 2 overtimes, 46-38, but a fairly exciting game. No, very exciting. I'm a Canes fan, so I'm going to downplay it, but it was an exciting game. Did you get a chance to check it out?
Yeah. FSU was stunned by the University of Virginia. You know what I'm saying? 46-38, that double overtime or in overtime. Chandler Morris threw three picks.
3 picks.
And the Seminoles gave up 211 rushing yards, and the defense bent, broke, and bowed out. A proud tribe was ambushed in the night.
You know what? And one breath I want to say I was surprised, and another breath I'm going to say I'm not too surprised, but still, I thought Florida State, and I still do believe Florida State is obviously better than they were last season when they just won 2 games. They've added some pieces and parts, especially Tommy Castellanos coming from Boston College. Yeah. He's been a little banged up, the proverbial lower body injury, which he's had. Well, he plays in this game, doesn't do anything spectacular. In fact, threw 2 interceptions, but I still think they had every chance to win. But this Virginia team, I think there's something to it because it's not that much of a rivalry because even though they're in the ACC, they don't play one another as often. In the past 10 games, Florida State is 7-3 against them. So it's always been Florida State's way. But then when I think back, way back, you can talk about how when Florida State came to the ACC, the most dominant team in the ACC, Virginia was the first one to give them an ACC loss. And that was with Tiki Barber, Rondé Barber. They were able to beat Florida State when they were very good. So I guess Virginia makes it a rivalry. They were able to beat Florida State. And now there's a little bit of luster taking off of the matchup that Florida State is supposed to have or is going to have against the Miami Hurricanes on October 4th, this coming Saturday. A little bit of the luster, but now there's a little bit more anger involved if we ever needed that much more between Miami and Florida State playing one another at Doak Campbell Stadium, Bobby Bowden Field in Tallahassee this Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to that game. Florida State and Miami's going to be like, we cannot lose to a team that lost. And then, Florida State want to erase that 0 off the back of Miami's record.
Yeah, of course. If you've lost the game in this rivalry and your opponent is coming in undefeated, even if it was Miami with the 1 loss, Florida State with 0 loss, you want to add that blemish. And a lot of times in the past, these two teams almost always came down to who was going to represent whoever in the national championship game. There were championship implications on this game years ago. They're trying to bring it back a little bit, but the talk has already started. Tommy Castellanos had some talking that he was doing before the season started, talking about Alabama and all of that, how Nick Saban's not there, so they're not the same Alabama. And guess what? He put his money where his mouth is. He played the part, and they beat Alabama, and everybody was shocked. On the other hand, in terms of a quarterback, I knew what kind of quarterback he was. Not necessarily special, but definitely effective at Boston College. I've seen him play enough at Boston College to realize that he was a difference maker for what they were doing. I just didn't think it would translate down to Southern football, especially at Florida State coming off of a 2-win season. But with Miami being undefeated, I hope you don't get too hyped for this or just look past Florida State because of the loss. I doubt it, because this is typically an intense rivalry. Miami comes into Tallahassee, and they're going to try to get the win. I was out there 2 years ago. Emory Williams was playing quarterback for Miami. They lost the game. It was a closer game than expected. Last year, I'm down in Miami. Cam Ward was the quarterback. Miami gets that revenge. But when you see the team they played, you're like, okay, hell, why did we get 40 points on them, 41 or more? But that's how that all played out. Miami taking on the Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee next Saturday. We do look forward to that, and we do have our look ahead segment coming up anyway. So let's move on. That started off week number 5 of the college football season, and that brings us to, well, more firings. More firings, that's right. And how did that happen? It was Sam Pittman this time, the head coach for the University of Arkansas. They were absolutely obliterated and blown out by Notre Dame. And when Notre Dame beats an SEC team, the SEC prides themselves. Even their lower tier teams think they're pretty good. And Vanderbilt is proving the point this time that they're actually pretty good. But in Arkansas's case, they did not expect a blowout like that. It was like, I don't even know how to even describe how that ended up happening the way it did. They just got ran through like some chick down in Miami. But in any event, Sam Pittman gets fired. And who takes over the job afterwards? It's no other than Bobby Petrino. And people who know college football and people who know SEC college football in particular, they should know. I wonder, was this by design? I wonder, did Arkansas going into the season know that there's going to be a problem later on, but we'll get to put this coach in place that we want anyways, right now. And what ended up happening was Sam Pittman was fired. Bobby Petrino comes in. And like I was just saying, if you're an SEC head or a college football head, Bobby Petrino was the coach of who? Arkansas from 2008 to 2011. And we all know, well, now I can't say we all know, but what happened there was the motorcycle incident is interesting because they know they're the Hogs. You can call them the Hogs. That's one of Arkansas's nicknames too. The Razorbacks, the Hogs. Well, he was on his Hog motorcycle with a player from the volleyball team. And then there was an accident. There was an accident. And during that accident, the police came as they come. And Bobby Petrino said, well, I was just out there by myself. And as it turned out, someone called in. No, you weren't in an accident by yourself. You had a rider with you. And it found out it was this young lady from the volleyball team who he hired as his assistant. And then, of course, it came out that he admitted to an affair and all this other stuff. He ends up getting fired reluctantly because they didn't want to let him go. He was doing damn good. I think that year he had an 11-2 season. Come on now. He won the Cotton Bowl. But anyway, Bobby Petrino, now the interim head coach. I don't think there will be a coaching search. I think he will be the new coach once this is all over. There won't be any noise about looking for someone else. He's the coach they want. He's the coach they have now. So Sam Pittman just happens to be the odd man out. So that's where that firing is coming from. So many coaches now getting fired. We talked about it last week and even the week before. Deshaun Foster at UCLA, Brent Pry from Virginia Tech, now Mike Gundy from Oklahoma State just last week. Now the fourth one, at least that we know of right now. Well, Sam Pittman. See ya. Don't want to be here.
See ya.
That's it.
Yeah. It's but Petrino has a very healthy football resume, so
Absolutely.
They're not going to look past him for nobody else because his resume is impeccable as far as
yeah, absolutely.
As far as football pedigree.
his football, exactly. It's all about the football. Forget about this character you claim you want people to have. You don't give a damn about character. You care about wins and losses because it brings more money to the program. That's what you're interested in. And I believe that Bobby Petrino can be that coach, and he will be that coach to at least give more of a boost to what Arkansas is doing right now. Because I remember last year Arkansas was doing some decent things, but couldn't get over the hump. I'm thinking now, because he's been there now for 2024, now 2025, 2 seasons on his new tenure there, but he's going to be the guy there, and for what he's going to add more to it. Just put it that way. But anyway, that takes us to our headlines. This has been a busy week, so we got to get through it because we usually try to get this done in 30 minutes, not less, but typically 30 minutes. And that all starts off with when we talked about FSU starting off the week. We talked about Army and East Carolina nonsense. We are all here because of Alabama playing against Georgia in Athens. For the first time in a long time, by the way, but they came to Athens, they beat Georgia, stopped their home winning streak. I think it was 38 games or 36 games. Nevertheless, they won. And Georgia, Kirby Smart, their excellent coach, 1-7 against Alabama, which is interesting because, or more interesting, only because he has 2 national championships in the past 5 years, 6 years, 2 national championships, had a chance for a third. And you couldn't beat Alabama except for one time, and that was 2022. So that's interesting there. But I tell you what, I think a new star was born. Now that we saw Alabama, there may be a little bit of Notre Dame in them from last season when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, but they played it out and got themselves into the playoffs and moved along in the playoffs. Championship game, ended up losing. I think that this could be one of those cases. Ty Simpson came in, first-time starter, without having to worry about looking behind his back. He loses to Florida State, but since then, he's gotten it together. He really shined against Alabama last night.
He did. The Crimson Curse continues for Kirby Smart. Ty Simpson he did really well. 276 yards, 2 TDs. And you said it. He was going to be the deciding factor in that Georgia game, and he was. Georgia rushed for 227 yards, but it didn't help them out. Alabama was able to hang on to the 24-21 win.
Now, this might not be a Nick Saban-esque type of Alabama team, but because it shouldn't be, because he's not there. But defensively, you would expect it to still hold its own, and it hasn't done it like we were expecting to. It's still the Alabama name, but it's no longer the Nick Saban fingerprint on this team. When you look at how they can't stop the run, they still were able to win on the road, which is one of the most difficult things to do in college football. Winning on the road in the SEC against these juggernaut teams, which Georgia's a juggernaut team, Alabama even now is a juggernaut team. Florida's having a down year, but typically Florida is one of those teams, LSU. You just go down the list. Ole Miss just walks through the door now. They're one of those teams. So it's very difficult to win on the road in the SEC. But going back to Alabama and their run defense, I mean, Georgia did run for 227 yards on their defense. Alabama didn't have any answers, couldn't run on their own because Jan Miller averaged less than 3 yards a carry. He's just a regular running back. Stop saying this guy is something special. I think he's a regular running back. Under 700 yards last season, under 5 yards a carry last season. You're coming back from injury this season, and they're expecting you to be a game breaker? No, you was a placeholder. You was just there. You just happen to be better than the other backs they have at the moment. But going back to Alabama's run defense, it all started off with FSU, who ran for 230 yards against them. But they're kind of building this bend but don't break mentality. And when they needed it most, Ty Simpson, who I believe now, and you'll probably get it a little later when I mention my Heisman Trophy candidates, he certainly is in the chat now. I think from what I saw, talent-wise, this guy has shown some elite skills. And I told a friend of mine who's a huge Alabama fan, he may be the best quarterback at Alabama since Tua, and probably be better than Tua, because that includes Mac Jones. Mac Jones did it for 1 season, but he's better than Mac Jones from the oddball test. And the efficiency, the high percentage of completions, the decisions, the ball placement, all of those things you want from a quarterback. And not to mention, he was a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. He runs very well, probably not the most athletic, but his straight line speed gets that damn first down. And he has enough of that speed to consistently do it. if you're going to play man-to-man and turn your back on them. So, yes, Ty Simpson, certainly one of the best quarterbacks in the country now, not just because of last night, but because if you watched it since the Florida State game, even though they didn't play great teams, you started seeing him build up until now. No preseason games in college football. Now he's doing what he's doing now, and this is who he really is, and he did it on the road. Next week, looking ahead, well, guess what? Vandy's coming back to town. The team that upset him last week. There's some get back, and Vandy's undefeated. So I know Alabama more than anything else wants to get that O and turn it into a 1 in that loss column. So that's what's going on there. But and by the way, Georgia did run the ball effectively. All the big plays they had were effective runs. Bowers had over 9 yards of carry, almost 10 yards of carry for the game. And Chelsea Bowers, and Bowens, whatever. But either way, he got nearly 10 yards of carry in the game. And, they were able to run the ball, but I don't think Stockton just has what Ty Simpson has in terms of being able to shoulder the load and be the difference maker at quarterback that they need. But anyways, Georgia loses. Bama moves up. In fact, I think Bama is now number 10 in the nation because the numbers have moved up. And I think there were people anyway dying for them to be pushed up. Now they're there. So now, you have any thoughts on the rest of this before we move on to the other big game?
Well, Alabama, we talked about Ty. Like you said, Bowen ran for 9.9 yards per carry. And but they, like you said, they bent, but they didn't break, and they came out of the hedges with the win.
Yep, and that's all that matters. Now Alabama's on a roll, and like I said, it may go back to what Notre Dame did last season, got that loss against Northern Illinois, but ended up in the national championship game. They just went out, and Alabama lost early enough to where they can go, and with an expanded CFP, they can get in that same spot. And if Ty is playing the way he's playing or getting better, because theoretically that's all he can do is get better. Wow, and the receivers he has, it's going to be sickening for whoever's playing against Alabama. And I know another thing that's sickening. It's sickening for those Penn State Nittany Lion fans sitting in Happy Valley, losing to Oregon. What's going on?
Man.
Oregon comes all the way from the West Coast as a Big Ten team now. They started last season with that, but now they're officially last year and this year, a Big Ten team. They win in overtime, 2 of them, 30-24 against Penn State. Why wasn't I surprised? I shouldn't be. Drew Allard, they've been trying to push this guy down our throats for a couple of years now. I don't think he's anything special. Is it because he's 6'5"? They lost the damn game, and it couldn't have ended a better way if you don't like Penn State. Whatever. Throwing an interception to end the game. Come on now.
Yeah, Drew Allard, 137 yards, steady but not spectacular. Dante Moore, 3 TDs, and he was the spark that Oregon needed. Dante Moore is the shining star for Oregon right now. So and his that tight end Kenyon, he's a star too. So the Ducks got a squad over there.
They always have a squad.
Penn State just got 276 total yards and not enough to survive and win that game in Happy Valley, which was Unhappy Valley when the
Sad
Oregon
Valley, as they once said, the Hurricanes called them. They made it Sad Valley. But Drew Allard, he keeps getting all of this attention. I'm always wondering why. And then you get a game like that really matters. You're in front of your home crowd and you get 137 yards passing. Man, it's so inconsequential. And he just whatever. They're still talking about first-round draft pick. I don't know if they're still talking about it now after a day like that. But Dante Moore, did drop those 3 touchdowns in Oregon. Pretty much a good team every year. Even the year when they didn't go to the national championship game and Washington went because they ended up losing to Washington multiple times with Bo Nix. They've always keep themselves up there. They just can't get over the finish line. One time I thought they could finally get over the finish line, but they ended up playing Auburn. Well, there goes that finish line in the championship game. But anyway, Penn State loses and they drop in the ratings as well. They're still in the top 12, so they still have their opportunity unofficially at the college football playoffs. And we'll find out once they start talking about the tallies and how they're going to put that list together when it becomes serious, I believe, next month, October. Well, hell, October is this damn week. October is this week.
Right?
Yes. So, and like I said, we had a plethora, one of those words we want to talk about, a plethora of big and important games this week. And one of those big games was LSU taking their act to Oxford Mississippi taking on Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss. I know he likes it better that way. And they lose 24-19, undefeated LSU. But man, the guy I really like, Garrett Nussmeier. I remember his father, and I say it every time, Doug Nussmeier, when he was at Idaho, blah, blah, blah. And I remember just a couple of years ago, I had Nussmeier beating out Jaden Daniels sometime in the middle of the season, getting the job, and then eventually heading on to the NFL. But as it turned out, as we see, Jaden Daniels ended up being a freak of nature, getting the Heisman in the process, becoming a Rookie of the Year, his first year in the NFL, second pick overall, injured now. But yeah, so I was wrong in that regard. But Garrett Nussmeier doesn't seem like he can get this offense sparked the way it
I know
needs to.
He didn't shine this game. It was a game of shadows. Garrett Nussmeier, 197 yards, no offensive rhythm. I don't know, he couldn't get it. It was, I don't know, just kind of, he was kind of like, yeah, they was giving him the business. Whatever they was doing, it was working, They only had 257 total yards, and Ole Miss escapes, and the Tigers look lost.
Yeah, well, they had the home field advantage, so it does matter to be in Oxford, and they were able to pull it off. And now they're moving up. Lane Kiffin, as dynamic a coach as you're going to get. I know he's a bit controversial, I guess, depending on who's saying he's controversial. If you want to hit, he's one of your guys. Of course, he's not. He's a great coach. If you don't like what he's doing because your team is left in the dust, well, he's controversial, and I don't like him. Get it out of there. That's what they talk about it this day. So yeah, LSU gets their first loss of the season. Ole Miss remains undefeated. Look at that. All these things falling on my head and everything. Remains undefeated as things are looking up for the Ole Miss Rebels. Things aren't necessarily looking up for the USC Trojans as another former Pac-12, Pac-10 team, heading to the Midwest and becoming part of the Big 10, the Big 11, the Big 15. However many teams are in that conference now. It's not 10.
The big conference.
But yeah, the big
beautiful conference.
They should call it the Big Beautiful Big Sky Conference. Forget about it. There's no Montana, so just whatever. But anyways, they ends up playing Illinois in Illinois. This is a game I thought would really show if USC was really about something, and I thought they could do that. But I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because Illinois was blown out, obliterated in conference play against Indiana last week. Fernando Mendoza just went off on them, throwing 5 touchdowns. I was like, man, they're either going to bounce back from that or they're going to get angry, be at home, and things are going to be a little better. But I thought the Trojans were doing something special out there. Well, they came over here and were specially handled as if they were bad luggage. They were being Illinois was able to handle business impressively in terms of Luke Altmaier throwing the ball effectively as he was. And it wasn't just effective. I don't want to throw away what he had done. It wasn't just effective quarterbacking. It was very damn good quarterbacking because there was no running game.
Yeah, 328 yards and 2 TDs. You can't ask for more than that from a quarterback.
And that's the truth. And I'll tell you what, even in the losing effort, when you go back to what USC had done, they lost 34-32. They had every opportunity to win the game at the end. But Mekhi Lemon, their wide receiver, that guy, man, he was unstoppable. They were trying. They were on him. He was making catches he probably shouldn't have made. He's 5'11", but he's freaking dynamic as they come. And he had 151 yards, though. He was targeted 14 times, made those 11 catches, and he was pretty much the force they needed. And, Jaden Maeva, he's the quarterback for USC. Obviously, he's someone who should be in the Heisman Trophy candidacy as well. He threw for a lot of yards, but it still lost the game. But 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, still look good. Still look good in a loss. Sometimes your team just loses and things just don't work out, especially when you're on the road. This is one of those times. On the road, you're doing what you can. Of course, you can always do more if you lost, but he still put up the numbers. And I don't think he's just a stat freak. He's just that good, still finding holes in that defense. Can you hear?
Yeah, you had slowed down a little bit, little lag. Right. But Joey Maeva, he threw 364 yards with that, nice total to put up in a loss,
Yeah. And so, Illinois back on the scene. They're not the pushover people might have thought they were just because they were blown out by Indiana. And yeah, that was embarrassing. Yeah, you did get a whole lot dropped on you. But the way things are looking now with Indiana, Fernando Mendoza still, in my opinion, the leading Heisman Trophy candidate. he's been doing more. He threw
Yeah.
his first interception, but he's still 16 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season, looking pretty damn good doing it. And based on what Indiana had done last year, he's picking up where they left off. They're even better at the quarterback spot now that he's there. So I think that, yeah, he deserves to be, because we will talk about the Heisman Trophy candidates that I have with the remaining time we have in this show. So like I was saying, Luke Altmaier, also another solid day, very good playing day. Didn't have a running game to really run to, but between those two teams, 992 total yards between them. So, yeah, there was some fisticuffs going out there that day, yesterday.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
992.
992 yards.
Yeah, so, it wasn't a game. It was a symphony of chaos. That's what I say.
And we got the violin to prove it. But then now we got to talk about Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame had 2 losses. I was whining about them just a couple of days ago, just a couple of weeks ago. They were 0-2, and I was saying they shouldn't be ranked, and they probably should not have been ranked in the coaches poll or even the AP. Now they are on a 2-game winning streak, and now I guess since they didn't fall out anyway, they were definitely going to be there if they were 1-2. And they certainly are there now that they're 2-2. I don't think they're going to go on a run like they did last year because they do have 2 losses here. I don't think the team is really that kind of a team just yet. Even though we're watching right before our eyes, CJ Carr really putting it together in his freshman year. He had a hell of a big day, but Jeremiah Love putting up some ridiculous production. I'm not even going to call it yards because it weren't yards, just 125, in the first half. But four touchdowns in total, 2 catching, 2 running. I mean, they're making more of an issue out of it than it should be. And it was Arkansas, and the reason why their coach was fired, much ado about nothing, but a win nonetheless in the SEC.
Yeah, the purge begins. They're 56-13. That's gonna put you on a hot seat no matter where you at. And like you were saying, CJ Carr 354 yards, 4 TDs, and Jeremiah Love was part of that 641-yard explosion. And then because of that, Sam Pittman was fired, and Bobby Petrino steps in as interim.
Yep, so that gave me a chance, and now because we just kind of went through here and didn't even pay attention to our little highlights as opposed to keep us on track. With all the time taking away, so we got to do a little fast track here. We want to talk about the Heisman Trophy candidates that I have on my list. And my Heisman Trophy candidates, as I already mentioned, Fernando Mendoza, I think, leads the way right now. And then you have Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia, if presence alone, if not production, is the reason why they're 5-0 right now. It just happens to be he's the deciding factor regardless. He was that last year. He's that this year. He's looking good while doing it. We'll find out more about him when he goes to Tuscaloosa again and see what he can do with this resurgent Alabama team. And then we have Ty Simpson. I think he now kicks down the door, and he has to be one of those candidates because he didn't when the lights were brightest. He put up a big day. And then I wanted to add a face of the crowd, faces in the crowd. One of the faces in the crowd, it's going to be a play that we probably don't talk about much and don't see enough, but they'll come up eventually later. And in that case, I talk about Robert Henry. He's a little running back, but he's from University of Texas, San Antonio. Take a look at him. I don't even talk about the stats with this guy. You just got to see him. You'll talk about the small school the same way they talked about a little bit of Ashton Genty coming from the small school. But this guy really puts it down. And he, old Mississippi kid, played in Texas, played in JC ball. I believe he played in, I think he was in the Mississippi junior college system. In fact, Mississippi and Kansas have some of the best junior college systems in the country. And he came from there, and he's a dynamic player, 4-time All-State player, as a high school player. And then, of course, we look ahead. Miami, Florida State, we talked about that. Vandy and Vanderbilt, we talked about that game. Florida going to Texas, even though Florida's on a losing streak, Florida's still a pretty damn tough team coming off of a bye. And Texas certainly has not been impressive in any way, shape, or form. They got to go to the swamp to play Florida. I believe Florida could really pull it off, believe it or not. Texas is not as good. Their defense is, but their offense leaves so much to be desired. So let's go down to the top. My dynamite dozen will go from 12 all the way up to 1, and starting at 12, Georgia. Since they lost, they dropped to 12. Penn State's number 11, Texas number 10. And then Texas Tech is number 9, Bama 8, Oklahoma 7, Texas A&M is at 6, Indiana 5, Ole Miss 4, Miami 3. Hey, why not? They jumped over last week when they were idle teams. Oregon jumps over them as their idol since they won a bigger game against Penn State on the road. And Ohio State is still the number 1 team in the country. Number 1. And we're still number 1, as they would have said, or Carolina said that back in the day. So let's see what we got here. So I'll shout this down because I'm going to count this down. He is Dimesky. I am Trav, and this is the College Football Review with you. We'll see you again next week talking about the games that were and looking forward to the games that may be. Until then, deuces.